Dubai is one of the most impressive cities on the planet. Futuristic skylines, golden beaches, old markets, and experiences that feel straight out of another world. But here's the thing most tourists don't realize. Dubai is incredibly easy to get wrong. People arrive with big plans, follow the first itinerary they find online, and that's how they end up wasting hours in traffic, visiting major attractions at the worst possible times, and rushing through the city in a way that feels overwhelming instead of unforgettable. Dubai has a rhythm, a flow, and when you don't understand it, even the best-looking itinerary falls apart. In this video, we're breaking down the biggest itinerary mistakes tourists make in Dubai and how to avoid them. From timing errors to planning traps, this guide will help you see Dubai the way it's meant to be experienced. Most Dubai trips don't fall apart at the end. They fall apart in the first 2 days. After a long flight, people land in Dubai and immediately aim for the biggest names on the map. Downtown, the Burj Khalifa, Dubai Mall. It sounds logical. If you're only here for a few days, why not start with the icons? But this is where the rhythm breaks. Downtown Dubai is intense by design. Crowds, scale, heat, walking distances that look short on a map, but feel endless in real life. When you hit it first, while you're still adjusting to the climate, the time zone, and the sheer size of the city, everything feels louder and heavier than it should. Instead of being impressed, you're already tired. And once that happens, the rest of the trip starts chasing energy instead of enjoying it. Dubai works better when you ease into it. Starting somewhere calmer like a marina walk, a beachside afternoon, or even a short ride across the creek gives you space to settle in. You begin to understand how the city moves, how long things actually take, and how the pace shifts between neighborhoods. By the time you reach downtown later, it doesn't overwhelm you, it lands. And that's the difference between feeling rushed and feeling ready. Because once you stop trying to conquer Dubai on day one, another mistake quietly reveals itself. The assumption that everything here is closer than it really is. Dubai doesn't feel exhausting because it's busy. It feels exhausting because people try to cover too many different parts of the city in the same day. On a map, everything looks close. Downtown, the marina, the Palm, Old Dubai, they all sit along the same stretch of coastline. So tourists assume they can jump between them without much effort. But in reality, these areas function like separate cities. Downtown is dense and vertical. The marina and JBR are slower and built for walking. Old Dubai is compact and cultural. And the Palm takes time just to enter and exit. The mistake most itineraries make is mixing these worlds together. People try to do downtown in the morning, marina in the afternoon, and squeeze in the Palm by sunset, all in one day. What they don't realize is that each move comes with traffic, mental reset, and lost time that quietly drains the experience. Dubai works far better when each day stays mostly inside one zone. A marina day flows naturally into JBR, beach walks, waterfront cafes, and an easy evening by the water. A downtown day pairs skyscrapers, fountains, and nighttime energy without rushing across the city. Old Dubai belongs on its own, without being sandwiched between modern districts that killed the contrast. Once you stop stacking unrelated areas into the same day, the trip slows down automatically. Less time in traffic. More time actually being present. And before we move on to the next mistake, the one that quietly ruins more Dubai trips than anything else, hit subscribe if this way of planning is already changing how you think about Dubai. Because what comes next isn't about where you go, it's about when you go. Even when tourists choose the right places in Dubai, many of them experience the city at the wrong time of day. And that single mistake can completely change how a place feels. Take Dubai Marina at midday. The light is harsh, the promenade is exposed, and the heat bounces off the water in a way that makes the whole area feel flat and exhausting. Instead of feeling vibrant, it feels washed out, especially if you're trying to explore on foot. But late afternoon into evening, that's when Marina transforms. The light softens, boats begin to move, and the whole place finally starts to breathe. By night, the marina fully comes alive. The skyline lights up, reflections stretch across the water, and the area feels cinematic instead of draining. That's when the space makes sense. But timing hits every part of Dubai differently. Old Dubai follows its own rhythm. It belongs to the quieter moments, the cool stillness of early morning in Al Fahidi, or the warm glow of sunset along the creek when the heat softens and the charm comes back to life. But visit during midday and heat turns narrow lanes and open courtyards into something you rush through instead of enjoy. Crowds move faster, shade becomes scarce, and the charm disappears behind discomfort. This is the rhythm most itineraries miss. Some parts of Dubai are built for early calm. Others are designed for late energy. When you flip those roles, even great places feel off. Once you start matching locations to the time of day they're meant for, the city stops feeling chaotic. Mornings feel intentional. Evenings feel earned. And when timing starts working in your favor, another contrast becomes clear. Dubai isn't meant to be experienced in one continuous mode. Another reason Dubai trips start to blur together has nothing to do with distance or timing. It's contrast. Many itineraries stack the same type of experience day after day. Glass towers, luxury interiors, modern attractions, elevated views. Each one is impressive on its own, but when they're experienced back to back, the impact fades. The brain stops registering differences. Dubai isn't meant to be experienced in a single mode. It works best when each day feels distinct from the one before it. This isn't about doing more. It's about alternating texture, letting the city shift tone, pace, and scale as the trip unfolds. Spend a day in downtown Dubai, then explore Old Dubai the next morning. Suddenly, the city's history feels sharper. Follow a day in Old Dubai with Palm Jumeirah, and Dubai's ambition feels massive by comparison. Move from the marina to the desert on different days, and the contrast between engineered energy and natural stillness becomes impossible to miss. These shifts are what give the trip shape. That's why some itineraries feel oddly forgettable even when they're packed. Too much of the same experience dulls the memory. Dubai rewards travelers who let the city change pace from day to day. Not by rushing, not by breaking structure, but by allowing each day to feel like a different chapter instead of a continuation of the same one. And once you understand contrast, there's one experience that demands special placement, because it doesn't just change the pace of the trip, it resets it entirely. There's one place in Dubai that changes the pace of the entire trip the moment you step into it: the desert. And yet, this is where many itineraries quietly fall apart. For most tourists, the desert becomes a box to tick, a half-day add-on squeezed between city plans, something booked quickly, rushed through, and mentally filed away before the sun even sets. The problem isn't the desert itself, it's how it's treated. After days of movement, traffic, and visual overload, the desert isn't meant to be another activity. It's meant to be a reset. When it's rushed, it feels crowded and artificial. Too many vehicles, too many extras. Too little time to feel the scale and silence that make the desert special in the first place. But when the desert is given space, when it isn't competing with the city, it becomes one of the most grounding parts of the entire trip. Staying long enough to watch the light change. Seeing the sky darken completely. Waking up away from roads, towers, and schedules. Experiences like overnight desert stays or glamping work, not because they're luxurious, but because they slow everything down. They give the city a pause and the trip a moment to breathe. The desert works best when it stands on its own, not as an interruption to the city, but as a contrast to it. And once the desert resets the trip, another mistake comes into focus. Treating Dubai like a normal city. A lot of Dubai itineraries fail for one simple reason. People plan the city as if it works like anywhere else. They expect to walk long distances during the day. They assume taxis are the only way to get around. They treat nighttime as downtime instead of prime time. Dubai doesn't work that way. This is a city built around extremes: heat, distance, and scale. And it rewards travelers who manage their energy instead of fighting the environment. Midday isn't where Dubai breaks itineraries. It's where energy quietly disappears if you treat it like sightseeing time. The sun is intense, movement feels heavier, and even small plans cost more than they should. That's why so many evenings fall flat. Not because the city slows down, but because travelers do. Smart planning protects energy. Movement happens when it's easier on the body. The middle of the day becomes recovery. indoors, shaded, slower. Not as wasted time, but as preparation. Transportation plays into this too. Many tourists default to taxis and end up stuck in traffic, watching energy drain between stops. But in key corridors, downtown, the marina, along Sheikh Zayed Road, metro and tram reduce friction instead of adding it. If energy is managed well, night doesn't feel optional. It feels earned. Dubai is one of the best cities in the world after dark. The skyline, the lighting, the energy. This is when the city truly shows what it's built for. Once you stop treating Dubai like a normal city and start planning around how it actually operates, the entire trip becomes easier, and that clarity leads directly to the final mistake: how you choose to end the journey. The last mistake most people make in Dubai happens right at the end. They treat the final days like leftovers. Anything they didn't get to earlier gets crammed in at the last minute. One more attraction, one more neighborhood, one more long ride across the city. By the time it's over, they're tired, and the ending feels rushed instead of meaningful. But how a trip ends matters more than most people realize. The final experiences are what linger. They're what shape the memory once the details fade. Dubai works best when the ending is intentional, not louder, not busier, but calmer. A slower day, a familiar area revisited without pressure, an evening that feels reflective instead of packed. When the trip tapers instead of spikes, the city settles in your mind differently. The pace feels complete, the experience feels earned. Too many itineraries peak at the end and burn out instead of landing. Dubai rewards travelers who let the trip close naturally, who leave space for one last view, one last walk, one last quiet moment. Not another checklist. Because in the end, it's not how much you saw that stays with you. It's how the journey felt when it finally came to a stop. Dubai isn't about doing more. It's about doing things in the right order, at the right pace, so the city actually makes sense. If this video helped you plan smarter, hit subscribe. And if you want to see the experiences worth building your trip around, watch the video on screen next. It breaks down the 15 best things to do in Dubai. Travel smarter, enjoy the journey, and let the city unfold the way it's meant to.